My name is Sylvia.
The discussion is define yourself before the world does. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. We are born into a world that is already speaking. It speaks through expectations. It speaks through labels. It speaks through comparisons. It speaks through fear. And if we are not careful, we will spend our entire lives answering to a name we never chose. Today, I want to talk to you about one powerful truth. Define yourself before the world does. Because if you don't decide who you are, the world will decide for you. And the world is not always kind. The world is not always patient. The world is not always accurate. The world is loud. But your identity must be louder. The reality of labels. From the moment you step into a classroom, a workplace, or even a family gathering, labels begin to form. You're the quiet one. You're not leadership material. You're average. You're difficult. You're too emotional. You're not smart enough. And sometimes the labels are disguised as compliments. You're so lucky. You're naturally gifted. You always have it easy. But here's the truth about reality. The world doesn't see your internal battles. The world doesn't see your doubts. The world doesn't see the nights you questioned yourself. It only sees the surface. And surface-level observation can never define a deep human being. You are not a single moment. You are not a single mistake. You are not a single success. Yet the world will try to reduce you to one sentence. If you don't define yourself, you will slowly begin to believe the sentence they wrote. Reality concept number 1. The world responds to what you project. There is a psychological truth we must accept. People often treat you according to how you present yourself. If you walk into a room unsure, hesitant, apologizing for your existence, the room will confirm your insecurity. If you walk into a room with clarity, purpose, and quiet confidence, the room adjusts, not because you are better, but because you are defined. When you don't define yourself, people test you. When you define yourself, people respect you. That doesn't mean they won't challenge you. It means they know where you stand. And reality rewards clarity. The danger of letting the world define you.
Let me be honest with you.
If you let the world define you, 3 things will happen. You will shrink to fit other people's comfort. You will chase approval instead of purpose. You will live a life that feels foreign to your own soul. Have you ever achieved something and still felt empty? That is what happens when you climb a ladder leaning against the wrong wall. The world told you success looked a certain way. You believed it. You worked for it. You reached it. And it still didn't feel like you. Because you didn't define yourself first. Reality concept number 2. If you don't know who you are, you will imitate. Human beings are wired for belonging. If we don't have a strong internal identity, we borrow one. We imitate friends. We imitate influencers. We imitate trends. We imitate personalities. Not because we are weak, but because uncertainty is uncomfortable. Reality check. Imitation may bring temporary acceptance, but it will never bring internal peace. The problem with copying someone else's identity is simple. You can never outperform the original version of someone else, but you can become an unstoppable version of yourself. When you define yourself, you stop competing in the wrong race. Define yourself through values, not opinions. So, how do you define yourself? You don't define yourself by income. You don't define yourself by followers. You don't define yourself by relationship status. You define yourself by values. What do you stand for when no one is? Integrity? Discipline? Growth?
Faith.
Resilience? Because reality will test your values, not your image. It's easy to look confident on social media. It's harder to stay disciplined when no one claps for you. It's easy to say you believe in honesty. It's harder to tell the truth when it costs you something. When you define yourself by values, your identity becomes stable. And stability is power. Reality concept number 3. Identity drives action. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. If you see yourself as someone who tries, you will try. If you see yourself as someone who quits when it gets hard, you will quit. If you see yourself as someone who always finds a way, you will find a way. The world cannot stop a person who has decided who they are. Because once identity is clear, behavior follows. And reality bends to consistent behavior. The quiet power of self-definition. There is something powerful about a person who knows who they are.
They don't need to announce it.
They don't need to prove it.
They don't need to argue about it.
They simply live it. You can feel it in their presence. They are calm when criticized. They are humble when praised. They are steady when others panic. Because their identity is internal, not external. And reality cannot shake what was built from within. Reality concept number 4. Criticism is inevitable. If you define yourself boldly, criticism will come. Let's be realistic. When you stop shrinking, people notice. When you stop apologizing for your ambition, people react. When you raise your standards, some will feel uncomfortable. Not because you are wrong, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. If you live for approval, criticism will destroy you. If you live from identity, criticism will refine you. Reality teaches us this. You cannot be both authentic and universally liked. Choose authenticity. Define yourself before failure does. Failure is one of the loudest voices in the world. It whispers, "You're not good enough. You should stop. You embarrassed yourself." But failure is an event. It is not an identity. If you don't define yourself, failure will. You will say, "I failed, so I am a failure." But strong identity says, "I failed, but I am a learner. I failed, but I am resilient. I failed, but I am still growing." Reality guarantees failure. Reality does not guarantee defeat. Defeat only happens when you attach failure to identity. Reality concept number 5. The world tests boundaries. If you don't set boundaries, people will set them for you. If you don't decide your worth, others will negotiate it. If you don't define your standards, they will be lowered. Reality is simple. People push where there is space. When you define yourself, you create limits. You teach people how to treat you. Not with arrogance, not with aggression, but with clarity. And clarity is respected. The internal conversation. The most important definition does not happen in public. It happens in private. What do you say to yourself when no one hears? Do you call yourself weak? Do you call yourself behind? Do you call yourself incapable? Or do you say, "I am in progress. I am learning. I am disciplined. I am becoming"? Your internal language shapes your external life. Reality responds to belief expressed through action. Reality concept number 6. Time will define you if you don't. If you drift long enough, time will define you. Not by intention, but by default. Years pass. Opportunities pass. Confidence fades. And one day you wake up living a life you never chose. Not because you lacked potential, but because you lacked decision. Defining yourself requires courage. It requires saying, "This is who I am becoming. These are my non-negotiables. This is what I will no longer tolerate," and then living accordingly. Define yourself through discipline. Motivation is emotional. Identity is structural. There will be days you feel inspired. There will be days you feel nothing. Reality. Feelings fluctuate. Identity sustains. If you define yourself as disciplined, you act even when you don't feel like it. If you define yourself as consistent, you show up even when no one is watching. Success is rarely explosive. It is repetitive, and repetition is powered by identity. Reality concept number 7. Comfort is the enemy of identity growth. The world will offer comfort. Stay small. Stay quiet. Stay predictable. Stay safe. But comfort slowly erodes identity. You start adjusting your dreams to match your fears. And that is dangerous. Because you were not built for survival alone. You were built for growth. Defining yourself means choosing discomfort on purpose.
It means saying,
"I am the kind of person who does hard things," and then proving it daily. Define yourself before success does. Success can be just as dangerous as failure. When praise becomes your identity, you become addicted to applause. You start performing for approval, and the moment applause fades, so does your confidence. But when identity comes first, success becomes a tool, not a master. You don't lose yourself in achievement. You expand yourself through it. Reality concept number 8. Identity is a daily. No one is coming to define your life for you. You are responsible. And responsibility is freedom in disguise. Final reality concept. The world respects those who respect themselves. Confidence is not loud. It is not arrogant. It is not aggressive. Confidence is alignment. It is when your actions match your declared identity. When you respect your time, others begin to respect it. When you respect your boundaries, others adjust. When you respect your growth, others notice. The world may test you, but it ultimately responds to self-respect. Closing words. Before the world calls you average, decide you are evolving. Before the world calls you too ambitious, decide you are driven. Before the world calls you unrealistic, decide you are visionary. Before the world defines you by your worst day, define yourself by your long-term commitment. Stand firm. Stand clear.
Stand intentional.
Because once you define yourself, criticism becomes noise. Failure becomes feedback. Success becomes responsibility. And life becomes purposeful. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for validation. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Define yourself now. Define yourself boldly. Define yourself consistently. Because if you don't write your story, the world will write it for you. And you deserve to hold the pen.